Roll, buddy.
Okay, 6 o'clock.
I'll go by the atomic clock.
Okay, well, they're knocking on the window, bro.
Here we are.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. Need a motion to adopt the agenda with the addendum.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Need a motion to approve the minutes of May 12th, 2025 regular meeting minutes and May 23rd, 2025 special meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, motion carries. Item 4.0, consideration of bills and warrants, page 9 to 34.
Move to approve the bills and warrants.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. 5.0, hearing of requests and suggestions of citizens and organizations. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to 6.0, special recognition.
All right, so tonight we have the Kansas 4A State Championship Boys Tennis Team, and they're ours, so we are glad that they are here. So their coaches, Jane Posh and Haley Kennett. Jane is going to introduce the boys on the team, tell a little bit about the season, and share. So you can just kind of stand right there. Okay, yeah, they've all got to come up, and then we'll get some pictures as well. Oh, they brought the trophy and everything. How exciting. Look at that. Yeah, it's great.
Davion Holman, Sr., Cole Kennett, Jr., Wyatt Schultz, Jr., Tanner Nolting, Sr., Connor Barkus, Sr., Haley Kennett, assistant coach,
All
and
right.
myself. Wyatt was runner-up, state runner-up, third year in a row. We're hoping that he gets first next year. He should be the ongoing favorite for next year. Connor and Cole got seventh in doubles.
Great.
Dave and Mason, who is on a KU visit's not here today, they got eighth in doubles. And Tanner got sick at regionals and didn't make it to state, but he beat like 7 people that were there during season or had wins over them. So if he would have been with us at state, we'd have won the first day. But instead, we had to wait for another team to help us, which was Heston was playing Winfield in the finals of doubles, and we needed Heston to win that match for us to tie for first place with Winfield. And we had to make sure that that was the case. I mean, I had my husband at home adding up the points. Sean Fry was adding up the points. Tyler Kennett was adding up the points. Tyler Beardmore was adding up the points. And I said, okay, I'm going to the table. So I went to the table and I said, okay, is this the case? And they said, yes. If they win, we will tie for first. So we're quietly watching the match, not cheering for Heston as we'd like to.
Not out loud. Yeah.
We found out that they were swathers. We had to find out what a swather was, so we learned that while we were there. A tractor, some type of a tractor. So it's going to the third set. We think it's up and down, up and down. Okay, we're going to get second. Okay, we're going to get first. Oh no, we're going to get second. I mean, it's just that type of a match. It goes down to the third set, third set tiebreaker, and Heston wins it. And Mason, who's not here, bolted out of his chair, ran over into where all these guys were in the tent, and then there was hugs everywhere. So it was pretty exciting. These guys won every tournament that we played this year except for the first one. We got second behind Shawnee Mission East, which is are they 5A or 6A? 6A. We upped our schedule this year. We played tougher competition because we got third last year, we got second the year before. So with all of us together, with my encouragement, we decided that we were going to up our conditioning. Wyatt wanted us to up our schedule, which we did because he needed more competition. That benefited us in the end. We played mostly 5 and 6A schools all year. The only tournament that we lost at, Connor was at a school activity. We didn't have him there. Kai filled in for him. And the team that won that was Shawnee Mission East, who finished second in 6A. So pretty
Impressive.
This is something that we've been planning on with these seniors for 4 years. And last year and the year before, we were disappointed that we finished behind Independence. This year, we obviously finished ahead of them. This is probably the most complete team that I've ever coached in the history of Parsons tennis, because when when Wyatt's dad was playing and they won 4 years in a row, state tennis, they didn't win SEK, they got second, because Independence was 5-8 those years. So this year, when we played Independence head-to-head, they beat them 4-0. So anyway, these guys have worked really hard to be where they are. A lot of off hours, and I think mainly more than anything, it's not really work for them. They just found a game that they really liked and got good at it.
Really good at it. Yeah.
Haley,
Alright.
I don't.
Thank you for having us. She does all the talking. Let's go.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good job. So proud of you. That's exciting.
It was super fun to watch you guys this year.
Thank you.
You can stick around if you want.
We're going to dinner.
Oh,
Enjoy. They're still getting spoiled.
We're still celebrating.
All righty. Item 7.0, accountability report.
Okay, so we're at the end of the school year, so we get to punch a lot of data. We spent the last 2 weeks breaking down, dissecting that data with some activities with administrators, with instructional coaches, and I know it's a lot of data. I don't mean to overwhelm you, but we like the data. We like to dive into it. Overall, we had a really good school year, and when we dive into the data, it tells us the same story. So as we broke that data down with administrators and instructional coaches, we tried to identify strengths in the data, and what kept coming up was behavior and attendance and social emotional. So those are just a few highlights that I want to talk about. Attendance has been a focus for 3 years. We have been trying everything possible. We've been reading articles. We've been researching what are other districts doing. We've had a lot of incentives, as you've probably seen on social media. Luckily this year, we've added another Spark Wheel position at Lincoln. We added Jaron Dixon as a community health worker, and I feel like those were huge with the benefits that we made this year. As you can see with chronic absenteeism, it dropped 5 percentage points. But what I'm most proud of is our Tier 3. If you look over a little bit, attending 80% or fewer. No matter what we have done the last 3 years, we couldn't move that group. They continued to miss a ton of schools. So Jaron Dixon doing home visits, administrators having meeting with parents, having 3 years of their child's attendance in there, proactive interventions, some things that we learned that really worked. So we're really excited for next year to begin the school year with a lot of those. Jaron was hired mid-year, so some of the things that we found that worked were towards the end of the school year. So we're really excited for what we can do with attendance next year, starting some of those interventions at the beginning of the year. Behavior data across the board looks pretty good. You're going to see some highs and lows in different areas. What I was really pleased with was the reduction in violent instances. That Maslow's hierarchy of need to feeling of safe, I think really affects all the staff, all the students in the building. So that's something we really talked a lot about. Active supervision, being preventative rather than reactive with interventions. I feel like our administrators and counselors did a really good job. Our staff did a really good job with active supervision, really buying in on that. So a 53% reduction in violent instances is outstanding. Still work to be done there. We still have too many of those, but I feel like we made some good gains there. If you'll kind of notice in the area, you'll see rises in flagrant misbehavior and horseplay. Those are up by about every building, and that's one thing we talked about. That's what leads to a lot of those violent instances. Kids horse playing around, somebody gets mad, and then it turns ugly. So we really tried to stop those horseplay activities and hold those kids accountable for those to prevent further of that. So we feel like that's been effective. Overall, behavior referrals is an 18% reduction. And with that, suspensions, out-of-school suspensions is a 15% reduction. So if they're not in the office waiting to meet with the assistant principal, if they're not out of school, that means more time in the classroom to raise our student achievement. You'll see a rise in school suspension and recovery. where we had the reduction in out of school. We're trying to do our best to keep those kids in school where learning can still occur. Those restorative practices in our recovery rooms are taking place where hopefully they're learning replacements behaviors for whatever got them in that spot in the first place. Socially emotional shows as a district went up across the board. A lot of reductions at Lincoln. I think some of those kids that were COVID babies coming in there, we're seeing some behaviors and some things to worry about. But overall, as a district, improvements across the board. Self-efficacy is probably one we talk the most of, and that's that, our kids' confidence in their abilities. And so we've seen some big increases there. 3% this year, but if you look over the last 4 years, it's a 20% increase in self-efficacy in our students, which is outstanding. And then lastly, those teacher surveys for school culture and leadership over the 4-year period of at least 20% gains. I think that factors into that behavior and attendance and SEL as well. So good gains there. If you look at the different types of behaviors that you'll see at secondary, you see a big reduction in skipping and elopement. That's been a problem. We added e-hall pass about a year ago, and we really feel like that's been impactful, keeping kids. And Lori and I noticed that when we go to the high school, the hallways are empty, and that wasn't always the case.
And so I think it's a combination of that e-hall pass and then
Yes.
having a dedicated athletic director gave Tyler Thompson
Yes.
time to really they made that.
Our
From the beginning.
secondary behavior numbers especially are much, much
They did,
better.
that group did a really good job of that.
And Lydia Nolting as well at the middle school did a great job. So a lot to celebrate there. There's some spots there that we can look at and we need to make a plan for going into next year. You're going to see the handbook changes as first read tonight. And you'll see kind of on that change sheet, some of the changes the administrators are going to make as things come up that we need to address. So making a plan going into next year.
So it's interesting, Jeff, when you talk about flagrant misbehavior and horseplay, one school is way, way above all the others.
Yeah.
Developmentally.
Yeah.
It's a middle school, right?
Yeah.
And the middle school, developmentally, middle school kids have a
About
harder
fifth
time.
grade through eighth grade,
have
that's
a harder
just
time
a
keeping their
real
hands to
handsy
themselves.
time there, And
They
it's
just,
hard.
they do.
I just find it
Yeah.
interesting.
It's
What
really
I found interesting was while the number of flagrant, like those misbehaviors or horseplay went up, the violent instances went
Exactly.
down.
Went down.
Because I think they did a good job of actively supervising and then catching them before somebody
And
got
holding
mad
them
and started
accountable.
swinging, before it really escalated. But
But if you drive by the middle school, before or after school, you see the procedures and the active supervision in place. And it wasn't always the case like that. It's a well-oiled machine of supervision, procedures, little things like that. You notice it at the high school at times too. So I think there's a lot of improvement that you can see, and the data follows that.
I'd be surprised if there were any other middle school in Kansas that looked any different than that.
you've
Yeah.
probably been in a
They're
lot
their
of them.
own little
Yeah,
aliens
Sure
at
they
middle
are.
school level.
It's a whole new world, every day.
any questions I can answer on?
If not, let's go on to item 8.0, report from the superintendent of schools.
Okay, a couple things. So the office is gonna be closed on June the 19th for Juneteenth and July the 4th for Independence Day, so that you're aware of that. And last week in Salina, I finished BOLD, which BOLD is a program that's offered through the KSB, the Association of School Boards, and it's Building Operation Leadership Development. And so BOLD 1 was, well, let's see, I quote-unquote graduated from BOLD 1 in June of 2020. So we had just gotten started, and then the pandemic, right about that time. So we finished up then. The process is, if this is something you want to do, you fill out an application, then they turn it into KSB, they review it. They take between 15 and 20 a year to go through the process, and it takes an entire year. We met not quite every month at a different location. We had vendors that came and talked to us, and so the Kicks group, they came and visited with us there. We've had food service people, other insurance people, all kinds of different things. And so I feel like I've learned a lot of things that otherwise I wouldn't know, because they don't teach you those things in superintendent school. And then at the very end, something we worked on was a problem of practice, which is just something that we were working on in our district, and for some, it was, should we pass a bond, or should we need to come up with a communication plan, and then after the election, it was really interesting how things changed. What we thought might be our focus and problems of practice in the beginning, then, with budgets and things like that, they became different. So we shared those, but we were finished last week, so that was nice. I appreciated the opportunity to do that. Feel like I learned a lot. It was good. The other exciting thing, every year in May, usually they say May, but they don't ever come until June, KU sends out certificates for people that have 25 years of public service in public schools teaching in the state of Kansas. And this year, Brenda Winder, we got her certificate in the mail. And so she has completed her 25th year, and all 25 of those years have been in Parsons. When we found out she was on the list, we did call and say, would you like to come? We'd love to recognize you. Her daughter's getting married on Saturday also.
Oh.
She's like, yeah, I'm in the middle of wedding week. I can feel that. Yeah, so, but she said, just mail me my certificate. But, so it's always nice when people have spent that many years, dedicated that many years, and then have dedicated them here. So that's what I have. Does anybody have any questions about any of that information?
All right. Item 9.0, reports from Board of Education, Tri-County. Kayla.
Okay, so I got to go to Tri-County, and somehow Leanne always sends me when they talk budget. So
They talk it every time.
Okay, yes. Well, for there, the 25 years in education for Tri-County is Jill Cleaver, and she's one of ours. So, yeah, and then 15 years they recognize Jen Tavanero, and for 5 years, Nikki Helton there. So that was kind of cool. And then they talked about the student enrollment. So last year, there was an increase of 41 students overall for Tri-County. 20 of them were ours. So we have half of the increase. They also talked about recruiting OT and OTA and low incidence teachers right now and what they were doing and trying to come up with a plan. They currently have like a tuition pool and things for anybody going into speech pathology, but they're looking at how to also incorporate that for OT in the future because it's worked with our speech path and we've gotten really good results from that. So they're looking at that. And then next year, they're looking at a possible increase per the districts for each district. So maybe a 2.5% increase for next year.
In our
as far as the
assessments?
school contribution.
In our assessments, it's 9.265.
Oh,
We found that out today.
well,
So.
it was a month ago.
Well, and you're
So
right.
you
I
know,
mean,
you
big-
talked about those budgets
Yes.
coming down and changing.
Yeah.
So anyways, we expect an increase just like with everything else,
Everything
especially
else.
with the number of kids that are coming in and are making up for half of the new population. So, yeah. And they had a really cool presentation about what's been going on and also some possible Paris training and some online partnership with Infinitec for autism training and certifications for Paris. And I thought that was also a cool idea and liked it. So, yep.
Thank you for going for me.
No problem.
All right. Item 10.0, new business action to accept donations to schools on page 37.
Okay, on page 37, there were none at the district office this month, or actually, this is for the month of April. At Lincoln Flesh Company made a donation for the kindergarten enrollment flyers, $1,350. Parsons Area Community Foundation, they gave a grant to Lincoln valued $1,205 for a total of $2,555. And the Parsons Area Community Foundation grant was, they called it Ride for Regulation, and it was like these little stationary bicycles, so that when a student needs, I mean, these little kids need to move. And so sometimes instead of just moving when you're not supposed to move, we can take organized breaks, structure breaks. They get in there and they ride that little bicycle. They're pretty cute. Yeah, it works. Garfield, there were none. Guthridge, none. Middle school had a donation from Commercial Bank for the 6th grade t-shirts at $100. The high school had an anonymous donation to FCCLA, $538. Southeast Kansas Orthopedic Clinic for the soccer program, $100. Tank Connection soccer program, $100. Forbes Hoffman Funeral Home, $100 to the soccer program. Carson Wall Funeral Home for the soccer program, $100. Commercial Bank, $100 for the soccer program. Magnum Systems, $100 for the soccer program. Parsons Taco Mayo, $100 for the soccer program. Wave Wireless, $75 for the soccer program. Community National Bank, $100 for the soccer program. Parsons Katy Golf Association, $25 for the soccer program. Parsons Family Dentistry, a $75 donation to the soccer program. The VFW, the Brown Bishop, soccer program donation of $25. Julie McIntosh made a donation for TSA for $50. B&J Express Lube, which is the McIntoshes, made a donation to TSA for $100. Wall Funeral Homes made a donation to the PHS Horticulture Program for $100, and Eye Care Associates of Parsons made a $100 donation to the high school horticulture program, for a total of $1,888 at the high school. Total district donations for April 2025, $4,543. I recommend that you approve those generous
Is there
donations.
a motion to accept those donations?
I so move.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passed. Item 10.1, action to approve renewal proposals for property and liability, cyber liability, and workers' compensation insurance for 2025, 2026.
Okay, this was what was in, this was, so, if you recall, Kix came and gave us their spiel, and Bob Wood came and shared as well as a representative of EMC. So in your view last Friday was this sheet that looked like this, that had the two comparisons. And based on that comparison, this was a 0% increase from EMC, which was a real surprise. I do think there are multiple districts that have left EMC and gone with Kix, and I think what EMC is doing is looking into see our history. You know, we're a good bet. We're a safe bet. We haven't had a lot of claims, and so I do think, you know, maybe that had some impact that we were shopping the market. So initially, the premiums, I thought, oh, well, we were way closer than I thought. I did not realize, though, that Kix does not include workman's comp. And the reason for that is because Kix is sponsored by KASB, that's one of their partners, and the workman's comp comes through KASB as well. So they non-compete. It looks like next year they'll be adding workman's comp to their formula and to their offering. It won't be something that will be separate. And they're willing to bid it again next year, if the board would so desire. It is a difference of $47,188 between the two, and so my recommendation would be that the board move forward with EMC for the 25-26 school year.
The only thing I have to comment about this is, I did notice the coverage levels in Kix,
Yeah.
some of those areas.
That is true.
And honestly, I don't know what's an appropriate coverage level, and so, since there was such a substantial difference in many of them, it might be wise to visit with Bob and to talk about how the EMC coverage levels are determined versus the Kix, because I know, most of these that are larger, I suspect we've probably never had a claim,
We have not.
and so.
Yeah,
does
and
it-
I checked with Laura about, Laura
Yeah.
and I talked about that because I was like, but and like I said in the view, the Kix is better coverage.
Yeah.
It just is a lot more expensive.
So-
However, she did visit with him because we wanted to make sure we were adequately insured, that we weren't underinsured with EMC. And she felt like, after looking through it and visiting with Bob, based on our past history, that we were,
Okay.
that it was enough, but.
So, yeah, I don't have a problem. I can make a motion to accept that recommendation for EMC, but we probably want to talk about coverage levels next year, just to figure out, A, if that's an appropriate coverage level with EMC, B, whether Kix could drop the coverage level and be more
Okay.
competitive, but that's a conversation for next year, so, in my eyes.
Totally agree.
I noticed that too. I'm like, this is a nice delta.
Yeah, it is double in a lot of instances. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
the
It is.
coverage, yeah.
Well, I think that's
Yep.
the short of it. It's just,
Yep.
it's not really an apples to apples comparison.
No.
So, but are you gonna make the motion, Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah, I made the motion, yeah.
Second.
Moved and
Continue.
seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Item 10.2, first reading of 2025-26 student parent handbooks, bus driver handbook, parent student transportation handbook, and social media guidelines.
That's everything that was handed out. So there's some fun things to do and to read before the next
For my
board meeting.
late night reading.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But if you have, as you come across things, feel free to highlight, circle, call either Jeff or I and let us know.
And each one of those has a handbook changes, so
Oh,
there's a
sure.
document
I
that
know.
just shows what has changed.
Oh, I love that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
just like
So you-
every year.
That's a
You
good
know, so you
thing.
know what's changed from the
Right.
previous
So
year.
So you don't have to read the whole book.
You listen,
Do what?
you listen.
Yes,
Yes, we
ma'am.
did.
Yeah, right.
When I got on the board, there was board member Rob Emery.
Yeah.
And Rob Emery read every single word of every single document. And he was kind of the board scrivener and modifier of all these documents. He read every word.
Every one of them.
And he, I mean, it's incredible what
It's a
the work he put into every one of those documents. Crazy.
All right. Item 10.3, the first reading of recommended KASB June policy updates, which I sat down with Lori last week and went through almost all those, and they're quite interesting, is all I could say.
And they aren't separate, they're included in your board packet, so you'll want to make sure that you keep those, to read those. If you've got any questions, please let us know. So, and KASB, just like when we give you the list of, here's what's changed, and here's why, KASB does the very same thing, and so when you look through on their policies, it looks like, what have we got? Does it tell us how many? It doesn't, it's not.
They just had amendments on it. They just
Mhm.
crossed
Not a-
out stuff and had rewritten.
Yeah.
It's
and-
not a tremendous amount when you look through the whole thing. So there are 12 existing policy revisions, 2 brand-new policies, and then the change to the table of contents. So, but that's on page, what is that, 38 through 72? 72. So if you have questions in the next, I'll be out this week, because it's wedding week, but
All right. Item 10.4, action to set July organizational meeting.
so typically this is just done when we have our July meeting. We have the organizational meeting at 6 o'clock, and then the regular meeting at 6:05 or 6:10, or, but I don't know, was it 6:10 before? Does it usually take us 10 minutes, something like that, so. And
I'll
then
make a
Jul-
motion for that.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, so let me make sure that I've got, so that will be on July the 14th. And we'll have one at 6 and the next one at 6:10?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All righty. Item 10.5, action on to authorize transfer of funds to close fiscal year 2025.
All right, this is something that we have every year in June. We just ask that the board give us the authority in which to get that, because everything has to be zeroed out as required by statute, so.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item 10.6, action to approve participation in Greenbush Energy Group and hedging authorization for 2025, 2026.
All right, we've been a member of this for several years. It's recommended that we continue. This way we have some level of control over natural gas. We've also done it with energy, with electricity in the past. This one is for natural gas. So then in case we have like Snowmageddon or Ice-mageddon, remember a few years ago? And then if you weren't a part of this group, then not only did you have to pay for the gas, but you had to pay for how the gas got to, to your city limits in addition to, it was considerably more, and there are some school districts that are still paying that gas bill. So, and they're just right down the road. So, this allows us to hedge it.
Move to approve the Greenbush Energy Group hedging.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item 10.7, action on adult meal prices for 2025, 2026.
Okay, so we still are going to have CEP, the community eligibility provision. There'll be some numbers that we'll have to work to make sure it's a go in July, but we're 99% sure that it will be. So that means breakfast and lunch will still be free for students. However, we do have to set adult meal prices, and they have, and it was recommended by KDHE and the group that those adult lunch meal prices increase to 5 1/4, which is a 50-cent increase, and breakfast prices increase by 35 cents. So we recommend that you approve those.
Motion to approve those changes on the adult meal prices.
Second?
Did I hear a second?
Leanne?
Leanne.
Moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item 10.8, action to approve food service written standard of conduct.
So this is on 79 and 80. It's to be reviewed every June, and it is required that, that it just be approved. It's part of the yearly application, so I recommend that you approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item 10.9, action on contract with CHC SEK for the 2025-2026 school year.
All right, this information was included a couple different times in your view. During COVID, prior to COVID, we had one nurse and one health assistant, and then during COVID, with ESSER money, we were able to afford to have a nurse aide in each building in addition to the one nurse. So we had 4 nurses aides with one. Last year, we were able to continue that because we did get a grant from KDHE. We didn't have any ESSER money, but we were able to get a $60,000 grant from KDHE to help offset that cost. That grant was canceled in March, even though it was to go through June, which is fine. So it was canceled. And those grants are not available for next year. So I did meet with Allie Martinez, who is the school liaison person for CHC. It looked like they were gonna increase their costs at about $50,000 for all of those. And then we weren't gonna have that $60,000 grant, so it would have been about a $110,000 increase. So my recommendation is that we have a nurse a nurse at the high school, a nurse at the middle school, and then a floater at the elementary. And the person from the high school or the middle school could go as well. That way we have 3 people, so it's not clear back to pre-COVID, but it's not, this is like the Chevy model, not the Cadillac model, where we have one in every building. It's just
So you mean one nurse and then assistants?
one nurse
Yeah.
and 2
I
assistants,
got you.
yes.
All right. I'll make a motion for that.
Second? Second.
Moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
But not like terrible.
Item 10.10, action on cooperative agreement with St. Patrick Catholic School for middle school football, boys and girls golf, cross-country, boys wrestling, boys tennis, and girls tennis.
All right, so Autumn Carson, the principal at St. Pat's, has requested that cooperative agreement for the 25-26 school year for those students to participate. And Keisha requires that we approve their request annually for that agreement. And we've had an agreement in place for a variety of years. They are going to a 4-day week, but they do understand that our practices are 5 days a week. And in order for students to participate, they would need to attend all of those practices. If they so choose.
Sure.
If not, if there's someone that attends and practices 5 days and someone that practices only 4 days, that may or may not impact playtime. If we're just being realistic. So, but it's my understanding that they're fine with that. They want to participate. We want for them to participate. And so I would recommend that you approve that.
We won't be like moving back our practice time for them?
No.
Because I'm just thinking like your time will be, okay.
No.
Because their kids might miss the first like 30 minutes of practice. But that's,
They might.
They're aware.
I don't, yeah.
I think it was
Okay.
their plan to let them out early for practice.
I think
if
they're
I'm not
supposed,
mistaken.
that was
Oh,
my
okay.
understanding as well, right? That they were gonna let them out early for, just as, as a reminder, they are not tied to the 1,100 and
right,
they don't have the same requirements, so they have a lot more
leeway.
flexibility. So if they wanna let them out 30 minutes every day for practice, then that's, we do expect them, to be there, and we hope to have them, so.
Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 10.11, action to approve procurement plan for child nutrition program.
All right, and there were a number of changes to this, just as there are each year. But we had to make sure that all the procurements adhere to the free and open competition and conform to all the guidelines Marla's gone through all of that training and has worked with Barb to get that procurement plan submitted, because it starts on July 1, so we have to have it, and is in effect July 1, so we need to have it approved prior to that. It's in your book, and if, no one had any questions, but it's just a requirement, so I would recommend that you approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item 10.12, discussion and action on House Bill 2134 regarding open records information and live streaming Board of Education meetings.
All right, and so this information was actually included in the view on May the 9th and May the 30th instead of April the 25th. So just so that you can make that correction. When we first got this, you know, the big difference is if the board appoints a person to serve on the facilities team or on the technology team, all of that becomes an open meeting. Our meetings have always been open. Anyone is more than welcome to come to our meetings, and we have always had public comment. I think what's happened, how this came about, is that there were certain places, not just necessarily schools, but certain places where they were live streaming a portion of the meeting, but then when it came to public comment, they were cutting it off, or they weren't, you know. And you're not required to have public comment in meetings. We always have had that on our agenda, but that is not a requirement. But it became people were not interpreting it, and so here we are. So what they're saying now is that if you have public comment, it has to be live streamed as well, which is not a big deal. But they're also saying that anytime there's a board member that's been appointed by the board, for example, site councils, you know, when you vote on, like, here are going to be the site council people, that becomes an open meeting. And that requires Amanda to send out an agenda and to be there to take minutes and to do all of those site council meetings. If we had a facilities meeting, if we had a curriculum meeting, and the negotiations meeting, that's still, there was some statute about negotiations prior to this statute, so I think we're just gonna have to sit back and see how that is all actually interpreted in the law. But what KASB is recommending is that since those are all, you know, would be open meetings, that we would need to conduct all those meetings the same. What's different for us is we don't have a boardroom to have everything live streamed every time, and a lot of districts do. We have a classroom. And so if we are having to have a construction meeting or whatever, and it has to be like we conduct other board meetings, that means we have to interrupt the teaching and the learning to set this place up so that we can do that if we choose to continue to live stream. As a reminder, the meetings are always open. People can always come. The only time that we don't, during executive session, then someone wouldn't be included. And there was a time during COVID where, because of the health regulations, we couldn't have. So that's.
So it's my understanding that the legislators were upset that some school districts, some cities were not completely live streaming their whole meetings, including the public comments. So in order to get more transparency, you're gonna have to live stream the whole meeting, including public comments. So what happens with us is it puts us in a dilemma, because now they changed the definition of what a quorum is. Well, there is no such thing as a quorum anymore.
Yeah, if the board appoints people, then it becomes an open meeting.
So for example, with the city, I told Verlin Bollinger, the mayor, you're gonna have to live stream when Eric Strait comes to the rec center as a representative of the city, you're gonna have to live stream that meeting. He said, no, we won't. I said, well, we'll see.
And I think that's just kind
So-
of where we're at. I think some districts have a dedicated boardroom where they can have you could just have every meeting there and it could be live streamed. Here, it interrupts the teaching and the learning. And so, because once a month, on board meeting day, they're in here right after lunch, and Ms. Kendrick she's got to move things around, students and all of those things. And if any other meetings that we have fall under that, because there's been an appointment by the board, then again, that interrupts the teaching and the learning for her.
So we've live streamed our meeting, I don't know, 30 years or more.
This is cost-benefit analysis, and so it's really simple that the benefit of live streaming some of these ancillary meetings that us board members are at is the cost of that's far more expensive than the benefit.
Exactly.
It's irrational. And I can't see that anybody would want to view those meetings, and if they did have an initiative,
Exactly.
then they can come.
Absolutely.
But, you know, the reality of it is Mr. Martino, in the spirit of transparency, was the one who was the driver of live streaming. I remember when it happened, and he said, we need to be transparent as a school district. And he drove that bus, and we have been on that bus ever since he drove that. And I think it was a good initiative at the time. It gave confidence in what we were doing, but this is just kind of over the top. It totally is inconsistent with the original Kansas Open Meetings Act, and so I would move that we quit live streaming meetings to be consistent with the CASB proposal. That's my
And
motion.
Like in the Thursday superintendent meetings, KSB has really encouraged districts to really consider not live streaming for their own liability because of what it really opens the district up to and having to be so specific.
And that was the CASB
Yeah.
All right, there's a motion on
That's
the
my
floor.
motion, yeah.
Second.
In a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so then that will take effect at our July meeting. There will be no live streaming, but the public is more than welcome to come. We have chairs, you can sign in.
Well, hopefully it'll change regulations or legislation in the future.
And they absolutely could. And maybe after a year or two, when it's been interpreted, maybe and gone to court and been tested someplace else, we'll have a better idea.
Item 10.13, action on the following job descriptions: business manager, principal, assistant principal, district public relations.
All right, and so that's page 103 through 113. It was included in your view. They're at the end of May. I haven't heard anything, so I would recommend that you approve those as proposed. So moved.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item 10.14, action on calendar change for 2025-2026.
All right, so negotiations for the 25-26 school year resulted in one less negotiated contract day, which it's a professional development day that was eliminated. We added that, 2 years ago? I think, something like that. So that's being eliminated. It's not student contact day. There'll still be 168 of those. There will just be 177 contract days instead of 188. So the board will need to adopt a new calendar. And so those calendars are included on page 114 through 116. Basically, it's taking a day off at the beginning of the year, which we do not recommend because we've already scheduled professional development and training for that.
And I don't think the teachers would feel the impact if it took that day off. Like they're going to.
Someplace
Yeah.
else, yeah. The other two options were. We could do February the 9th, which had been a professional development day. That could be replaced with just school not in session.
That's the day after the Super Bowl, correct?
That is the day after the Super Bowl. Or April the 6th. That day could be, instead of that being a professional development day, that would be a day, no school, which would make for a 4-day weekend, because we do have Friday off for Good Friday. So those are some, and the other thing that we looked at, but we didn't put a calendar, is we talked about there's 2 days on the current January calendar that we are out. What is that number? For the 5th and 6th, right. Oh, because it didn't print colored, that's why. So 5th and 6th, though, we could say not on, don't come back on the 5th, that we would just have professional development on the 6th. However, we did want a day, the beginning of the semester, for them to have an opportunity to get in their rooms and work and get ready. So that was why we had those 3 choices, either August, February, or April. So our recommendation would be either February or April. I don't know that we had a,
Well, my opinion, whatever it's worth, I think a 3-day weekend is good, but I think it's also disruptive mentally for staff as well as students having that. But for the February, well, it'd be kind of nice to have it off. I get that, but again, I think people have the mindset of we're going to go to school Monday through Friday. So for whatever it's worth, I would just as soon do it on that other April day, because it's already
A disruption.
a disruption.
And then that way, that also gives another day for test
Yeah.
preparation in
Yeah.
February, where they are game on, getting ready for state assessments. We haven't had them yet. So that is another reason for that
And we have to
February
designate a
date.
couple days that are snow makeup days.
That's the issue, right
Yeah.
there. The later it is, like April 6th, that's value add to have that one, because
Right.
we have snow in February,
Right.
Right.
and we've already passed our days.
Yeah.
Right.
I
You know,
would
our
agree.
days off, kind of like we did this year.
Right.
Then April 6th works out, so,
So
Yeah.
I,
yeah,
So to
we
make
could
a
always add
motion.
it back.
So, yeah, I'd
Doesn't
make a
require a
motion.
calendar meeting, does it?
She met once, she
it does not require another calendar meeting. You're good.
Good deal.
No. David made the motion.
Yeah, you're meeting that, Olivia, you just,
PD day on April 6th.
April 6th.
Seconded.
All right, moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, executive session.
Oh, we have a 10.14 for
Oops,
the, that addendum.
Oh,
I made myself a little note because, which is good, because now I can't find my paper.
I lost it.
Well,
All right,
do an addendum, where are we?
10.14A, action on 2025 student athletic accident insurance renewal with First Agency.
All right, and so we carry two policies that cover student accidents. The first one is just basic accident, and that premium did not increase from last year. And what that means is, so after the student's primary insurance pays, then the district's insurance, for a first agency pays 70% of like the deductibles, for the parents. So, and to be honest, what I learned in Bold this year is that not all districts offer this.
Very few do.
Very few, but those that have high poverty do. I thought that was interesting. So there's also that catastrophic accident policy, which is based on enrollment, and which would pay additional funds to parents, and that wasn't an increase either. So it's a very reasonable safeguard.
Yes, it is.
I
In
think
case of a
most
more
dis- and
serious
most districts carry that.
Yeah, they do, most districts do carry the catastrophic, but then they don't carry that additional, first agency for student accidents.
Do you know how many times we use that a year?
It's a lot. And I don't have a number right off the top of my head, but I can think just raising Matt Ray in high school and in middle
used
school,
it.
we used it probably half a
used it
dozen times.
At regionals.
Yeah. I think anytime a student is injured, and it does, if it's a big injury, when Matt was in, what was he, sophomore, broke his patella tendon, yeah, the patella tendon snapped, broke his leg. In gym, that did cover the portion, a large portion of that bill that our insurance didn't cover,
Right.
which was helpful. So took a little less sting out of it, and he was in PE, so it was, you know, we've used it a lot, ball games and everything, so. I would recommend that you approve those two renewals.
So moved.
So moved,
Second, as a
Second.
parent, I would appreciate it.
all in favor, say aye.
Accident-prone children.
I love those, makes a difference. Okay,
Item 10.15, executive session to discuss personnel matters for non-elected personnel.
I need less than 10 minutes.
What's less than 10 minutes?
7.
I could do it in,
7.
I could do 7. Does
Okay.
anybody have
it's
anything?
like name that tune kind of deal.
Yeah, it is kind of like that.
I like
I
it.
didn't know if anybody else had any to add to, for any other
No.
discussion as part of that. I can get it done in 7 minutes.
All right, I'll make a motion to go into executive session, discuss confidential employee information pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under coma at 6:48 for 7 minutes, come back here 6:55. That's my motion.
All right, need a second?
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. live, so we'll go on to item 10.17, action on personnel.
So we're gonna cut out 10.16. So
Yeah,
10.17,
but
so your
10.16.
recommendations for employment, Eric Lyons, high school head girls basketball coach, effective the 25-26 season, and Kathleen Pierce, Lincoln Title I aide, effective the 25-26 school year. I recommend that you approve those folks for employment.
So moved.
Second?
Moved in second, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
All right, we had one resignation from employment, Tabitha Ruth, high school guidance counselor, effective June the 2nd, 2025. I recommend that you approve that resignation.
So moved.
Second?
Moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.
6:56.
Whoa,
Look at that.
fastest
Be a
meeting we've
record.
had in like 4 years.